Hello, amazing people. Just fixing my eyebrow there. I wanted to share about my recent experience of loss. So I will probably talk about things that are a little bit sad, and it's entirely up to you whether you tune into this or not. So on the 15th of June, I lost my absolute hero, my favorite person in the whole entire world, my grandfather. And he was an incredible human being, a quiet observer who knew far more about other people than he ever expressed, loved children, provided the space and the freedom for me to be exactly as I was supposed to be as a child and as a human being, answered all my questions, made me laugh, a very, very funny man. So there were a few things about the process of the end of my grandfather's life that I learnt about myself as an autistic person that I really want to share. So many things. So the first thing is I became acutely aware that when I got the call to say that he was in his last moments, I wasn't sure what the rules were. So in my mind, I wasn't sure what it meant. I'd just been given some pretty intense information, and so my brain went into processing mode. So I had the data, I was processing it. I wasn't sure what was expected of me. And as autistic people, this is what we do sometimes. We rationalize and, process the data to come to a logical analysis or conclusion. So I had to remind myself to feel into what felt right. This doesn't always come naturally to me because of my autistic brain, so it will just want to compute and spit out an answer that's logical. I had to feel into what felt right for me, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to be there in those moments, in those final moments. And then, of course, my brain wanted to analyze what that would look like because, that uncertainty and that unfamiliarity, who was going to be there, what was the energy going to be like in the room? Would I be welcome? And again, I had to remind myself to come back to my feeling, come back to my intuition. How do I feel about this? What do I want? What's important to me? And what was important to me was that I be with my grandfather. And I wanted to prioritize that above anything else. So I went and I was there. Now, there was a lot of feeling. And I learnt that I was unable to tap into my emotional process, my feelings, whilst other people were around, which was really interesting to me. So I had to really get to the bottom of how can I support myself in this moment where I can't feel anything because I'm so overwhelmed with what's happening. And I realized that I was caught up in empathy and being empathic, so taking on other people's feelings and energies, which is what many autistic people do naturally. I was more concerned about everybody else than I was for the process and what my process was. So I had to really tap into, okay, what can I ask for here that will be right for me? How can I support myself in this process to do what feels right for me? And I asked, when everybody's had enough time with Pop, when it feels right for everybody else, could I be allowed some time on my own with him? Because I knew I needed that to be able to feel, to be able to really connect with what was happening and how I felt about it, what my experience was. Because when I'm around other people, I tend to be very easily disconnected from myself and my own process. And that's nobody's fault. It's just how my brain operates. So I had my own time and I was able to connect with my feelings. I also became aware of a process that I talk about a lot, and it's the brain-body disconnect. So when autistic people are faced with an event that might be really heavy or traumatic or intense, what can often happen for us is that our brain separates itself, our mind disconnects from our body. So rather than being able to feel what was happening emotionally, my body took over instead. So my body went into a form of shock. I was doing a lot of shaking and rocking on my feet. I got up quite a momentum of rocking on my feet. I was stimming with my arms, shaking my hands and my arms a lot. And I became really conscious of what my body was doing for me to be able to regulate and to survive, because really what our body does in all of its wisdom is knows that its one job is to keep us alive, right? So the autistic body will engage in a series of movements or practices in order to keep us safe, to protect us, to make us feel okay, to bring us back into balance, to help us stay alive. So my brain picked up that there was an event that was stressful, so it perceived threat and danger, and it indicated to my body to kick into action, to do what it needed to do to make me be okay. And it did that. And I'm happy about that. I'm thankful for that, because that's what its job is, and it did its job. When I became conscious that my body was doing this is when I realized I need to ask for time alone with my grandfather so I can feel, which is what I did. It was also really difficult for me to manage a lot of different people's ways of regulating and coping and moving through the process of loss. So when somebody passes, families tend to get together and there's a lot of feeling, and people all cope in different ways. And you know, human beings, we all cope in various ways. So I had to again focus on, well, what do I need to be able to get through this okay and to cope okay, and make sure I'm treating everybody else with respect as well and not losing myself in my feelings. So whenever I needed to, I just removed myself and laid on the floor of my mother's house completely alone in front of the fire and just watched the fire, and had naps, ate well, cried when I needed to, laughed when I needed to, and made sure that I wasn't just grieving loss but also celebrating life. This is so important. You know, our loved ones wouldn't want us to be just grieving their loss. It's so important to honour the people that we love by celebrating who they are and their contribution to us as human beings, who we've become because of them. So I was fortunate enough to be asked to write my grandfather's eulogy and to read that, and I did. And it wasn't easy, but it was absolutely pivotal in providing some really beautiful, peaceful closure. And yeah, I'm probably making this process sound a lot easier than it was. It wasn't easy. It's not easy at all. You know, being autistic and looking after our needs as autistic people means that we need to be in a constant state of awareness of everything that's going on, you know. And as autistic people, we are quite analytical anyway, but really being in tune with my body and being conscious of what it's doing and taking cues from that. What do I need? What do I need? What do I need? And as much as to outsiders that process might sound very self-centered, And they might be thinking, oh, this is why it's called autism, because it's all about selfishness or self-centeredness. Actually, that process ensures that we're regulated and that we can stay calm and treat others with respect and avoid having meltdowns, which is really important to me. So yeah, I just thought I might share that, as grim as it might be, because I know that we don't often talk about these topics a lot openly, but it's important for autistic people to know that we can move through these really painful events and look after ourselves at the same time. The end.